Hey, what's up? The February 11 update focuses mainly on localization and polish. It specifically fixes instances where English text was popping up inside other language subtitles and UI elements, which was confusing a lot of players who had their game set to say Spanish or French, but were suddenly seeing English lines in the middle of a conversation or menu. Alongside that subtitle/UI language cleanup, the patch corrects an issue where certain choice text in episode 6 displayed incorrectly. So if you noticed a mismatched option or something that didn't line up with what the narrator or characters were actually saying, that should be resolved. The update also bundles in minor audio, subtitle, and localization touches across the season. The kind of background maintenance that most players won't always notice until it's gone, and then they realize how much smoother the experience feels. Now, for a little perspective, this release is small by design. After launch and through December and January, the devs pushed several incremental patches to fix a swath of gameplay issues, some of which were pretty impactful for progression and stability. I'll summarize the important gameplay fixes from the larger January patch and other recent builds so you have the full picture. Again, slight spoilers below for specific scenario names and episode events. The earlier patch addressed a potential soft lock some players saw when starting the first gameplay shift of episode 5 where hero cards wouldn't load and the game could enter a non-responsive state. That was a pretty severe issue for anyone who hit it because it could halt progression. There was also a fix that unlocks the Robert Tactician personality type in the endgame player stats for those who had earned it, but didn't see it reflected, which matters if you're into collecting and completion stats. Other fixes included a correction to hero power reveals in episode 3's first shift, and a resolution for the Air Team Rescue scenario in episode 5's second shift, so that flight-enabled heroes could once again be dispatchable. Previously, that scenario could either not appear or would block certain heroes from being used. The updates continued to address progression blockers. There was a fix for the gameplay shift in episode 7's self-sabotage scenario when players failed or missed downing the golem, and another for heroes getting permanently stuck on the map in episode 8 when Malevola's portal ritual ability triggered. One neat little interface fix patched the hover preview so that Golem's adjusted hero stats would correctly display when his Diamond in the Rough ability activated. There were also fixes for instances where upgrading a hero's stats while they were injured would incorrectly return them to an uninjured state. Tiny things that can break immersion or cause inconsistent outcomes in fights. Item-specific and ability-specific problems were handled too. The SDN Pharmacy, coffee items stop reset bug that could leave waiting heroes stuck was fixed, and Coop's Ayla Second ability was corrected to avoid granting multiple unintended stat boosts. The team also implemented missing dialogue in certain gameplay shifts, tightened up some controller input and UI issues in gameplay shifts, and ran improvements on analytics performance so the devs can better track and triage issues moving forward. There were also the ongoing minor audio, visual, subtitle, and localization tweaks you'd expect in a living game post-launch. All of this paints a clear picture of priorities. The latest patch is all about smoothing the presentation and fixing the leftover localization and subtitle quirks, while the earlier build did heavier lifting around progression, scenario logic, and a handful of notable gameplay affecting bugs. If you've been stuck on odd behavior that prevented a shift from loading, or if you've seen English bleed into localized UI and subtitles, these fixes should make your next session feel more coherent and stable. I know it can be a little frustrating to see a small patch come through when you were hoping for new content, but these incremental updates are exactly what keeps the game playable for the widest audience, especially in a title where choice text, localized dialogue, and scenario triggers are central to delivering the story and mechanics the way they were intended. The developers have been methodically addressing both the big blockers and the small polish items, and this release is just another step in that process. So that's the long version of what went into this update. Language and subtitle fixes, an episode 6 choice text correction, and a sweep of audio subtitle localization polish across the season, with the context that last month's larger patch tackled the heavier gameplay and progression issues. If you follow patch histories, you can see the team moving between stability work and polish work, which is the usual life cycle for a multi-episode choice-heavy game. Thanks for listening. That's the rundown on the February 11th update and the related fixes from the recent bigger build. Hope it helps you understand what changed and why those fixes matter when you jump back into the episode shifts.